Welcome to the Revenue Room. I'm your host, Rachel Bryant. Join me each episode as we dive into the strategies and insights of top CMOs and thought leaders, uncovering the tactics that transform ideas into revenue. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or an aspiring leader, the Revenue Room is your go-to source for actionable advice and industry trends. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm excited about today's episode, and I know it's one you don't want to miss. Today we're hanging out with the brilliant Jay Tuel, VP of Go-to-Market Experts at Demandbase, where he uncovers the magic behind transforming sales organizations into powerhouse account-based marketing functions. At Inverta, we know that a rock-solid sales and marketing partnership is the secret sauce to any successful ABM campaign. It's all about creating a vibrant, seamless collaboration that turns strategic visions into reality. In this episode, Jay will share his savvy insights on how shifting SDR roles to focus on high-value accounts can revolutionize your strategy, can enhance prioritization, and fine-tune compensation. And the power of a strong sales and marketing alliance. Jay's got some golden nuggets on that one, too. So whether you're a marketing maestro or sales strategist, buckle up for a lively conversation filled with actionable tips and innovative tactics. We're here to make your ABM efforts not just effective, but extraordinary. So let's get into it. Okay, welcome everybody. Hi, Jay. Great to have you.
Hey, it's so nice being here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Can you just introduce yourself to the audience? Let us know who you are and what you do and what your experience is.
Yeah, my name is Jay Tuel. I'm the VP of Go-to-Market Experts at Demandbase. So my team is a team of former ABM practitioners who, kind of show our customer base how to use our products, think about strategy behind ABM, how to align their team, sales and marketing alignment, all that stuff. So leading up to that, I've done a number of things at Demandbase. I started out as our SDR leader. Over that time, I've led things like enablement and customer enablement and sales productivity. I've always had kind of an operational background, so I love to touch things that SOPs and MOPs are doing. And I even lead a couple of our different overlay sales teams for some of our different products. So coming at this topic from a lot of different points of view in many different sales roles. Yeah.
That's great. We're really excited to hear from you today, and I'm excited to get our hands dirty around sales, so it's super excited.
Nice.
All right, so before we jump in, we're going to share our favorite mug, which is something we like to do here at the Revenue Room.
So
I'll start with mine real quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's okay. Mine today is I like to collect the Starbucks mugs. You know, the location Starbucks mugs. I love these shapes and whatever. This is my Maui mug. We visited Maui in 2019 for Christmas, for the pandemic hit and whatnot. And so this is one of my favorite mugs.
Oh, that's a beauty. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. How about you, Jay?
So I'm not gonna lie, my coffee mug is super boring. I am just plain black Yeti. I like things either really warm or really cold, and to maintain that temp, so I went Yeti. But I did bring something fun with a little bit more personality. I do have a favorite water cup, and it is this Pacifico old school mug. I promise there's not any beer in here right now.
It's Friday when we're shooting this. It's okay.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I like that one just because it's got beachy vibes, and it reminds me like I'm going to work hard so I can get to the beach. The beach is my favorite place. That's where I want to be on vacation, being able to get in the water, in the sun. Now that I have kids, I can't really read, but I used to love being able to just read out in the beach. But yeah.
I don't know how old your kids are, but mine are teens, and I'm back to reading on the beach.
Oh, I'm so jealous. That's awesome. Mine are
You'll
5 and 3, so it's a lot of pool time splashing around, which you can have fun doing that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. 17 and 15 over here, so they get their own thing.
Right. Right.
Awesome. Well, with that, work hard, play hard sort of theme, let's delve into the work hard side.
I love it.
Tell me a little bit about the transformation that you led with the SDR team at Demandbase several years ago. to focus on account based.
Yeah.
And like, what were the drivers for that change? What made you decide to go do that? Who in the organization was involved in that?
Yeah. So I started at Demandbase just over 10 years ago. And, we were kind of creating the category of account-based marketing at that time. But what was crazy was we weren't doing it ourselves. So I came into an SDR team that was purely MQL focused. We really didn't have an ICP or a TAM. Those SDRs, it was like there was no process. So when a lead came in, they were just like fighting over it, trying to call, just like all of the things that come along with that. They had no tools to be able to like effectively do outbound or research accounts better. So, I'm a big kind of process and operational leader. So the first thing was like put in some process. Yeah, I'd work at a number of different companies in the past where I was like, I know the problems behind MQLs only, and a lot of the times is you're subject to who raises their hand and wants to talk to you. A lot of times, at least in my experience, that was, smaller accounts that our sales team wasn't super excited to be working. So you always got that. If you were just MQL focused, sales is like, what are these accounts? Like, why are you passing these to me? They weren't excited to work them. They in their minds had kind of images of these big blue chip companies and like, why aren't we getting any of those? And that's why outbound was created in the first place. So it was, find those accounts that look like our existing customers. How do we find more of them? What kind of attributes do they have that we think would make them a good account? Um, you know, being being demand based, we could layer in some signals that could help verify those lists and help us with, scoring and predicting accounts that were more likely to convert. But I do think it was building a process, separating inbound and outbound function, putting in rules, building those lists. I think when you ask about who I did that alongside, I had some really strong partners on my MOPS and SOPS team who were like my go-to people, always working closely with VP of Demand Gen, CMO. My boss, who was our VP of Sales, he would get involved too. I think in more of the day-to-day stuff, though, it was working closely with demand gen and operational people to get us all aligned on what we were doing and build processes.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the inbound versus outbound. How did you set those roles up? And was everybody doing everything, or how did you divvy that activity up?
Yeah, I mean, there's such different roles that we did want to separate them. To because if you have inbound and outbound, people are likely just going to chase the inbound, like get me to the demo request or the people raising their hand, and then outbound doesn't have the focus, right? So we wanted to completely separate, give them different goals, different targets, what we were looking to do. So I think that was a really important piece. Now, that said, I do think that you could take outbound principles and apply them to inbound. And what I mean by that is, you know, if an account comes in and you have a lead at that account, work that lead. But what I encourage my inbound teams to do as well is like, don't just work the lead that came in. Like, I'll assign the account to you for a month or until you kick it into nurture, and like multi-thread. That's probably not the only person at that account that is interested in doing research. Like, you have the name of somebody, but now understand who are the people on their team around them, or who's their boss, or like who else would be connected to this that you could reach out to. I know a lot of teams that are working MQLs are like, I need the name. I'm just going to give me a phone number, give me the person. But to crack into some of these larger accounts, we all know like buying committees are bigger. You need more people in the approval process to buy a technology like ours. A lot of different personas. If you sell multiple products, or you have people, or you have a solution that can be used by a number of different personas, like, you're going to have to expand from that one person anyway. So why not do it, at the SDR level? And then reps are happy. It's like, we're multi-threaded. I have multiple people I can go to accelerate this deal forward. No one wants to be stuck with a single person who could bottleneck your deal. So I do think it's important that you can bring some outbound principles to inbound. But I do think separating the function, because they are kind of different skill sets, is the way that I would go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point around the buying committee. And, research is telling us more and more, those buying committees are growing,
Yeah.
right? Like size wise, especially when you go up market into bigger companies and whatnot. What are some of the challenges that you and the team at Demandbase faced on sort of making this shift for your team and being more account-based focused?
Well, I think, demand based and a lot of customers I talk to, everyone knows change management is hard, right? It's not easy. It's a new strategy, especially when you have people who have been like doing the kind of MQL inbound approach for years. It's what they know, it's what they're comfortable with. So I do think anytime you have to deal with change management, it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. My approach to that is always start small with people who are willing to engage and try something new, have them prove it out, have them take it to their counterparts and say, hey, this is working, you should try it, and then expand naturally that way. So I think my lesson is, with change management, this is not we're going to fix it in a month or a quarter, maybe not even a year. Like, it could take a couple years to fully embrace this change and get the whole org behind it. But I mean, I think what I'm seeing in the ABM space too is like the MQLs are harder to come by. A lot of marketing budgets have been scrapped in recent years. People have less money to spend on technology and services, so they have to scrutinize every purchase they make. And like, in some cases, I don't mean to be this dire, but like, your job could be on the line if you misfire on some of these purchases. So you have to be really thoughtful about what you do with your budget. And as you mentioned, like, I used to be able to go out, review tech, buy what I wanted, and like I could sign the deal myself. Like, that's not happening today. It's getting approved by my boss. It's getting approved by our CFO. Some cases it's probably going to your CEO for approval. So I think you really have to kind of consider that what was happening and the way things were happening. Like, we live in a new world now, and you're probably not happy with what's happening in the MQL funnel. You probably have seen your sales productivity numbers dip, and if you're in that situation, it's like, we have to try something new, because with the ways of the old, like, it's never going to be that way again. So embrace change and find a solution and try new things and try new strategies and see what works.
So hard for so many organizations, right?
Difficult. Like, I'm not going to lie, it's not easy to do, but
Yeah.
if you're not
Especially a larger
satisfied,
company.
larger company, I mean, it is hard to steer that ship, and we know like our customers face that challenge. So that's why the whole start small, build success, have them bring it to a group and then expand kind of naturally that way. Like, kind of feel like that needs to be the approach.
Yeah. I imagine some of the change management you had or challenges you had there was around compensation, because we know SDRs and salespeople live on compensation, right? That's how they're compensated, obviously. That makes sense. Compensation. Uh, Tell me about how you changed your models or how you adjusted for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just look at like, the inbound versus outbound, you know, when inbound was flowing, those were a little bit easier to convert just in the time it took to do that. So we knew that we could maybe lift up that number in terms of like meetings or pipeline coming from there. Or outbound, it's a little bit more difficult. So I think you can vary like what the targets are. There was another, like, if we were trying to build out a new segment, we don't have as many marketing materials. We don't have as many case studies for that. Like, it's going to be more difficult. And a lot of times you're educating the market So like we shouldn't expect you to have as many opportunities. So if a normal number for an outbound SDR was like 5 opportunities a month, if we were expanding into a new segment, maybe their goal is 2 or 3. So I think you need to align around that. And then, just know with salespeople, like incentivization works. If you have something that you want to get off the ground, a new initiative, a new segment, a new product you're trying to launch, um, I think you either goal them specifically on what action you're trying to drive, or you incentivize it through, SPIPs or whatever else you want to do. But incentivization drives behavior, and that should never be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the incentives that you set up that seemed to work the best for you?
Well, I mean, for those of you who know Demandbase, we did a big we have a week of a prospecting week called Shark Week, and absolutely loved it. It was to get the whole kind of team behind, like, we're early in the quarter. We know we need to build pipeline. We want everyone involved. So this was not only our SDRs and sellers, our CSMs got into it. Our marketing team had certain like programs and promotions they would do. So we'd have big contests around like, here's our sales play for the quarter. There's a bunch of different competitions within that sales play. There's opportunities to win like $500 here, $1,000 here. And then we even had like awards and specialized swag around that for like bragging rights and stuff like that. So I think we built it into our culture and we incentivized it well, and it drove behavior. So like everybody knew at the beginning of the quarter, we had Shark Week. You got to prep for it before, you got to get ready, and like people are going to be looking at, your numbers and what did you convert. And then it just kind of turned into a natural fun thing where like, we set up teams, we got the executives involved. There was some like smack talking back and forth. So I always vouch for like, if you want to do a prospecting day where you get executives involved and maybe expand that to a couple days a quarter, or, go the way we did and do it a week. I think you see a lot of teams out there still doing blitzes too with like marketing and SDR, a way to just get people to do a certain activity, or like, we're going to hammer the phones, right? And just drive that behavior back that you're trying to change. But yeah, I always like to put some dollars behind something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true that incentives drive behavior.
Right.
I'd rather use that carrot, like put that carrot out there and let them go run after it.
You have to be a little careful with spiffs, right? You don't want to make them too difficult so no one hits them and then they're just numb to them. They like don't care about it. And you don't want to do it too frequently where it's like, it's the expectation and I'm not going to do it unless there's a spiff involved. So you need to be careful.
Right, you start sandbagging.
Right, totally. And then you're like, well, we had nothing the previous week and now it's this week and now we're doubling up. Like, that doesn't make sense either. So you got to put some rules and guardrails in place and monitor that kind of thing. But I think generally spiffs still work, and incentivization and just breaking up those teams to say, hey, you have a target on this and this is the behavior we're trying to drive and this is where we want you to focus, I think is ultimately what you should be doing.
You talked a little bit about the marketing aspect of supporting your teams through that. And having talked to you previously, I know that you and your marketing leader had a really great relationship and partnership. Tell me some of the things that really worked well in that partnership and why it was so important.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this knowing, again, it's difficult to do in large enterprises. It can be even harder, but I think when you're trying to launch something like this, like, I need to get behind what their goals are and they need to understand what mine are. And we need to find a meet in the middle spot of like, how are we going to do this together? So I met regularly with my marketing counterparts, not only to align, but like to build a relationship, and there's mutual benefits to that. Like, I know I can count on that person. If I really need something or I want to run a campaign that I'm passionate about, I got my partner over there that I know I can go to. Right. But I think meeting, depending on kind of how closely you need to work with that function, like an SDR leader and someone in demand gen should probably be meeting weekly, right? If I'm a sales leader and I need to meet with my marketing team to get updated, maybe you do that monthly, but at least have an area where you can communicate, see what the other is doing, update on your goals and your performance, and have a conversation about the dials you need to turn to get to where you want to go. I think, we also would meet with our MOPS team to say like, hey, we noticed this about the MQL flow, or even with, solutions like account-based solutions. How are my target accounts moving through the funnel? How are my MQAs, which are marketing qualified accounts, which is basically the stage right before we think they're going to turn into pipeline? Like, how are we converting them? And if we're not converting them, what do they look like? And like, what attributes can we change? And how can we tweak what feeds into that to get it to the conversion rate we think it needs to be at? So like having those conversations about how to iterate and make better and improve processes, like I definitely think you need to be having those conversations as well. And definitely that monthly think where we all get together, review the numbers. Hopefully you have shared goals where it's not like, marketing's based on MQLs and meetings, sales is based on pipeline and revenue, and there's no connective tissue between the two. Like, I think that's a mistake. At a leadership level, your head of demand gen, your CMO, should be sharing some goals with your sales leader.
I found a lot of times in organizations we work with, it's just not true.
Yeah.
Yes, marketing's looking at pipeline or marketing source pipeline, but there's not a great connection between not just sales leader and marketing leader, but sales individual contributor and marketing individual contributor, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I always encouraged my teams. I've worked with dozens of sales leaders in my career, but like I've always encouraged my teams to do ride-alongs, sit with salespeople, SDRs and account managers, whatever that is. Learn from the interactions they're having with prospects. What's resonating? What's not? What are they doing? And what could we do differently to support them? How can we have a better partnership together?
And we used to do this fun thing on our SDR team where we wanted marketers to see a day in the life of the SDR, and SDR wanted to see a day in the life of marketers, or a week in the life. So we would do this thing where an SDR could pitch like a campaign they wanted to run, where it could be multi-channel, like what does the email look like? What does a landing page on our website look like? What would the direct mail be? What is the messaging? So they would come up and like pitch their ideas. We would have 10 teams. We would say, okay, these 3 teams are the finalists. We would then put a marketer on there, and the marketer would have they would say, oh, I really like that idea. I think I know what I can do here. They would come in and work with the SDRs and see like, okay, how are we going to message? Who's going to be our audience for this? Who are going to be reaching out to, and get feedback from the SDR and like, this is why this campaign's going to work, and who we're going to target for it. So they got to like live in the SDR shoes and see the what behind the campaign request. And it was just such a cool way for them to look outside of their role and their day-to-day and understand what their peers were doing. And I love that. There were so many good ideas that came out of that contest. And like our marketing team was like, wow, this is a really good idea. Like I got to hang out with these 3 or 4 SDRs. Like they're sharp. They know what's up. So it was great team building, but also, a lot of people, at least in the SDR or sometimes in the beginning of their marketing career, they're not sure which direction they're going to go. Let's give them opportunities to see what's outside of their role, and show them like, we care about your growth and what you want to do. Like, yeah, go meet with that person. See if that's something that interests you.
That's really smart. How fun I want to work at Demandbase. I mean, back then, not now, but I'm perfectly happy now. But that's super fun. You had Shark Week, you've got Pitch Week, your pitches and all that stuff. That's super fun.
I
That's fun.
loved it. I would sit there like proud dad mode, just like, these ideas are crazy awesome. I love it. It was always so much fun.
Well, and like you said, like to build that camaraderie and culture. Like how many times I'll peel back the curtain a little bit on the marketers, but like a lot of times we sit in our little conference rooms or on our Zooms, and we're like, oh, those stinking salespeople. Yeah, like you get frustrated, and
Totally.
you're not even got to walk a mile in somebody's shoes and like understand what they're facing.
Well, and like we all set growth goals for ourselves. We want to be part of growing companies that are valuable, right? So you set these extreme goals for yourself. And, there are times where you may miss or you may be pacing behind, and the obvious thing, or not the obvious, the easy thing is to start pointing fingers. They're not doing their job. What are they doing? But if you get the insight into like, dude, what they're doing is hard. Look at what it takes, it helps alleviate some of that finger pointing. Like, dude, I worked alongside them. I know what they're doing. We're all trying. Let's unify and rally behind the mission instead of finger point and blaming. It's not healthy, and it doesn't build great teams.
Go team, go team.
Absolutely.
I like that. Well, as we wind down our time, I'm wondering if you could provide the audience just like what we call a pro tip. So something tangible they could take away today and maybe implement in the next month or quarter.
Yeah. So I think for sales and marketing teams who want to align, I think it's like do the shared goals, but then also build out what we call our order of operations. Like, make it easy for someone to know what to do during their week. Or if it's like, we need to know what accounts we're targeting that map to this sales play, build it for them. Make it so they don't have to search. Give them the materials they need. Say like, hey, they're part of this campaign. We have these marketing resources. Here's some messaging. And like, you're not always going to use the messaging, but give me the bullet points of what I need to be more effective here. So like, create a process behind what you're trying to do in your, in your demand gen, GTM, account-based function. Make it easy for someone to know what to do so that they can put more of their energy and effort into creating pipeline and not like, which accounts do I target? What do I do? What do I message them with? Like, get the personas aligned, get, what the message is, the content aligned, and help them move forward so they can spend their time on, sales and marketing tasks rather than, trying to come up with the idea or think through it. So that would be my tip: is create an order of operations, have some kind of weekly workflow that your sales and marketing team can follow.
That's great. And I know you're an operations person, so I'll do a follow-up question on that.
I mean, that's obviously the operations guy is going to be like workflow and process, right? Yeah.
But I think that's so important for people who have a focus on trying to have an outcome to the activities they're doing every week, and to have a guide to follow, I'm sure is super helpful. What kind of are there special tools you need to do that, or like can somebody do that in a Google Doc?
Demandbase. No, just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think you can do it in a Google Doc. You can do it, you can research on Wikipedia. There are free tools out there to use. I think you need to consider what you need in your tech stack, what your go-to-market is. In the sales world, it's like we need sales intelligence data. Most sales teams have some kind of a sales engagement tool. I love the conversational tools and understanding what's happening on calls. Obviously need a CRM to keep organized and see all that stuff. I think account-based tools and any tools that can give you signals, like I want that information not only to prioritize my accounts, but to be able to be more relevant in my messaging and understand who I need to multi-thread to. So I think there's a lot of good sales solutions out there. A lot of them can do things across those different buckets. So there's been a pretty solid like consolidation play and tools being able to expand to do a lot of things, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, you can start free, do the Google Docs, Wikipedia. I think determine what it is you're trying to drive and use tools to help. I think that was a big game changer for me 10 years ago. Knowing they had nothing, I'm like, we got to get something for them. You do need to invest to make sure that, you see the outcomes that you're hoping to get.
Great. That's good advice. Well, thank you, Jay. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for all of the advice. And good luck to you in all the work at Demandbase.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for tuning in to the Revenue Room today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. For more, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Don't forget to follow Inverta on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. That's Inverta, INVERTA. Have a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Reach out and let us know. Until the next time, keep innovating and driving that revenue growth. See you next time.